A tree diagram is a method to organize multiple outcomes. For questions 1 through 3, use a tree diagram to list all possible outcomes. So number 1 says, toss a coin 3 times. So if we toss a coin, there are 2 possible outcomes. It's either going to land on heads or on tails. And then if we toss it again, there are 2 more outcomes. So it's either going to be heads heads, heads tails, tails heads, or tails tails. And then if we toss it a 3rd time, there are 2 more outcomes. So for each branch, we have to do 2 more outcomes. So heads heads heads, heads heads tails, heads tails heads, heads tails tails, tails heads heads, tails heads tails, tails tails heads, and tails tails tails. So these are all 8 of the possible outcomes. Next, they are asking us to find some probabilities. What is the probability that all 3 coin tosses will be heads? So if we look at our tree diagram, we only want to look at the final column. And there are 8 possible outcomes, and only one of them is all 3 heads. So this will be 1 out of the 8. What is the probability that exactly 2 of the coin tosses will be heads? So out of the 8 options, there are 3 of them where exactly 2 of the coin tosses are heads. So 3 over 8. Next, what is the probability that exactly 1 of the coin tosses will be heads? So there's 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. So that will also be 3 out of 8. And then lastly, what is the probability that none of the coin tosses will be heads? So that is the one where every toss is tails. So that is 1 out of the 8.